All right. Hi, everyone. Today is Wednesday, May 3rd, and this is the Cluster API office hours. Thanks for joining. If you are new and joining for the first time, just know that you can get access to the agenda by joining with the Cluster Lifecycle mailing list. And also, please remember that we are following the CNCF Code of Conduct. Our meeting etiquette is to use the raise hand feature on Zoom if you want to speak, and I'll make sure to watch the hands and call on you. And if you have a topic that you want to bring up or any questions or any general feedback, feel free to add it to the discussion topics under the agenda. And as well, if you could please add your name to the attendee list, that helps us keep track of who's attending these meetings. With that, we have a first item in the agenda. We usually give a second for folks who are new to introduce themselves if they want. So this could be just telling us a bit about why you're here, what's interesting to you, and yeah, just a bit about yourself. So if anyone is new and wants to say hello, I will mute, and now is your chance.
Maybe I will say something. Michael Hill, hello. I'm new here for the first time. I was told about those meetings on KubeCon in Amsterdam on one of Capi Talks. And I'm very glad that I'm joining in this particular meeting because I just recently stumbled upon a Helm provider and I have a few questions regarding it. And also, since the company I'm working for is at the moment heavily investing in development of the platform using Cluster API, I would like to begin somehow contributing to the project. So thank you.
Awesome. Welcome. Anyone else? All right, let's keep going then. So first item is the open proposal readout. I don't know if we have anything. There's one. I think, Jack, are you here? Do you want to give an update on that one?
Yeah, I just added that. I was racing and looks like I made it. So this is coming out of the managed Kubernetes feature group. The proposal is still a work in progress, but there's a lot of discussion. So I think it's worth moving it up to this list going forward. So this is going to propose a change to the infra-cluster requirement that providers implement when implementing Cluster API. There's a lot of details there, and there is some active discussion on maybe some of the scope, and we might actually change the title. There've been some good feedback on that. But yeah, please click on the PR link and join the discussion if you're interested in managed Kubernetes and how we can make that a little bit more consistent across providers.
Thanks. I added your name there. Feel free to add other co-authors if you want. Anyone got any questions for Jack about this proposal? Any other proposals that should be in here but aren't? All right. Let's see, discussion topics. All right, I am gonna pass it over to the release comms team first to tell us about the new patch releases.
Yes, hi everyone. Johannes here from the comms team. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly announce that Capi release 1.4.2 and 1.3.7 have been released yesterday. Surely most of you have already read it in Slack. But if you want to read about the details, you can click on the links. You can see which patches and bug fixes have come into the release. Yeah, and the next one, 1.4.3 and 1.3.8 are planned in about 4 weeks on 30th of May. So these are the next ones for the future. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you, the release team, and congratulations on your first patch releases in the 1.5 cycle. Great work. All right, any questions about the release? Okay, if not, moving on. Fabrizio, you have the next one. Oh, sorry, Stefan, please go ahead.
Yeah, just one comment. Just want to highlight that 1.42 supports Kubernetes 127 now. I think you didn't mention it, right, Johannes? Just for people who are looking to use it.
Yeah, you're right.
That's
Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks. That is in 142, you said, right? Not 137. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. All right, Fabrizio, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Cecile. First, I saw someone trying to access the meeting notes. If you want to access, you have to subscribe to the SIG Lifecycle mailing list. I pasted the link to the mailing list into the chat. Okay, moving to my topic in agenda. So there is an issue in CAPI which is linked. It is about migrating CSI driver out of tree. This issue it was opened by folks working on the migration, and it is pretty generic. It was like a call for action to cluster API folks. Hey, please get ready for this change that is happening. Similar change are planned for CPI or already happened for CPI. And so there is some discussion around back and forth, but this is mostly not a topic for Corecast API, but is a topic for add-on solution like the end provider, or eventually for people using other tool to install add-on like GitOps, or for people using cluster resource set, but it's not a change or requirement in cluster resource set. It is only that folk has to be ready for the migration. My TLDR here is that there is a lot which is provider specific in those migrations. Also the fact that different provider, different infrastructure cloud are doing this migration at different timing. But at the same time, it is a common problem across all the cluster API providers. So this is a call for action for people in providers working in different clouds, working on it. If you face some problems or you find some smart solution, please report back to the team, because we can work on helping solve the problem, or we can share knowledge and make the life easier for the people that are going to migrate after you. I don't know if Cecile want to add something on top of this.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized it well. I think it's something that we can still, I think, do some thinking on, because the current user experience of having to know to install CNI, CSI drivers, cloud provider is not necessarily the best, especially since usually cloud providers or infrastructure providers will have an opinion on what users should install for what version, etc. But at the same time, it's not really something, like you said, that can be solved, I think, within Cluster API, at least not without becoming provider aware, or it would have to be some contract between the infrastructure providers and Cluster API. But then we also want to allow modularity around add-ons. So I think there's definitely some thinking we can do. But for now, I think treating the CSI drivers the same way we treat CNI and cloud provider makes the most sense. All right, was this mostly just a call for awareness, Fabrizio, or is there any action that we need to take on this?
No, it's for awareness because there is this issue in Cluster API, but basically we cannot, it's not actionable for us. So it is more, hey folks, I know that you are working on it. Let's work at this on this as a community as much as possible.
Makes sense. Anyone else has thoughts or questions or comments on this? All right. Moving on. Next one is also Fabrizio. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there is a cap in Kubernetes which is getting near to approval. So it already has some approval and some LGTM. This cap is from Journal Legit, and it's basically, even if the title is not super clear, but what is basically defined, advocating for is to extend the SKU test for Kubernetes. So the SKU support for Kubernetes, so Kubernetes support -3, like API server does. The interesting part is that by extending this support, and the cap by itself, it is an interesting read, but the interesting part of it is that given that we, as Kubernetes, release 3 versions per year, with this cap, it will be possible to do what Jordan is calling the streamlined upgrade. That means that once a year, people can do a simple upgrade that goes from the current version to the 3 newest one. And this streamlined upgrade can be done in a smart way, playing around the SKU. So you upgrade only the control plane step by step, and you upgrade and you do a skip upgrade for nodes. That means that if you have a cluster with 3 control plane nodes and 50 workers, basically the 50 workers roll out only one time. I think this is interesting. I don't know. So the question that I have for the team here is this an operational practice that people follow? And I'm trying to make up my mind if it is something that we have to start thinking to automate in Cluster API as well.
Let's see, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't do this anymore, but earlier versions when we were doing more active first migrating to Kubernetes, we used to do this. We would fall behind and we would upgrade our control plane, verify everything worked, upgrade our control plane again, and then replace the nodes to catch up to the control plane, just because, you know, we had the N-2 and kubelet would work fine on those compute nodes. But we didn't go more than that.
Jack?
I think it would be terrific if CAPI could have a first-class test that ran through this scenario after this cap lands. I think we have the primitives in place in the end-to-end suite in Cluster API that we could compose a test like this. Does that seem feasible?
I let Stefan answer.
I think basically, yes. We just have to pick for which version we do this, but maybe we just, I mean, today we have, so we have 2 different kinds of upgrade tests. So we have one kind where basically we upgrade from, I don't know, 120.21, 121 to 122. Those are separate jobs that we have in core CAPI. And then we have one which we are just running whenever we run all end-to-end tests. And that's basically from the previous version to our current newest supported version. So I think we just have to pick basically what we want to do. But I guess we just pick the newest one that we have, and then we go back -3, and then we can do this. I think we have to either write a new test or just extend the current upgrade test that we have. But I think it shouldn't be too complicated. I think we can do it with and without cluster class, as far as I'm aware of what cluster class can do. And yeah, we might need like 1 or 2 new utils, but just guessing here a bit. But it shouldn't be too hard.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I assume it's not going to be completely easy, but any additional things that we would add would probably be minor and could be a part of that spike. Do we have N-3 right now from a single version of CAPI, or is that going to be something that we actually change when this KEP lands?
What do you mean with do we have N-3?
Well, this would be more, it would be easier if we could use a single, like say the latest version of cluster API, and then create a cluster with N-3 and then do the upgrade piecemeal on that same version of cluster API, as opposed to using say an older version. Yeah, so that's net new work for CAPI to support N-3 over N-2.
No, we have.
It's not, okay.
We just opening a file, I think N-4 and 3 and 5. So 3 for management cluster, 5 for workload cluster. So we are easily within that scope. We can even do a self-hosted if you want to.
Yeah, great. Fabricio, go ahead.
Yeah, we can definitely test these with legacy clusters. What is interesting for me is that if this idea is something that people actually want, we can make the cluster class upgrade smart enough to take the decision. So if I'm doing N+1, I do one way. If I'm doing N+2 or N+3, I do the control plane first and then worker nodes, and I go through intermediate version. So let me say, automating end-to-end test is the first step, but then automating the operation, making the operation simple for users, in my opinion, is the next one. But yeah, please take a look. Eventually we can I can open an issue in CAPI as well, so we discuss what we want to do in CAPI around this idea.
One quick question for you, Fabrizio. Are we currently enforcing the skew in CAPI between worker pools, like machine deployments, machine pools, and the control plane?
I answer quickly. So we are not enforcing skew in general, and we have a couple of issues around this. What we have is in cluster class, we do not upgrade, we do not allow to upgrade out of the skew. So we have some, I would say we have a very, very basic control around skew.
Oh, got it, thanks. Let's see, I don't know who was first, but Vince, since you haven't spoken yet, go ahead.
So a couple of things on just like the CAP, but also just in general. I don't know if you saw, like there is LTS support, like a working group, like trying to be formed. So I came in late, so I'm sorry if it was already discussed, but we talked yesterday in SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and I'm really interested in the feedback that this community can give into LTS for a number of reasons. Like there's nothing decided yet necessarily. Like this first CAP that's happening, it's like basically like just a way to simplify today and allow basically like worker node to live at least a year. So that's the first step. And then from an LTS point of view, like, you know, there is open questions like, are we going to be able to upgrade from an LTS version to another LTS version? What does that mean for the community, like, you know, like the release team to maintain these versions? What also does it mean, like, to backport bugs? What kind of bugs we backport? Is it only security fixes, right? All of these things are still open. But if you just a call out, if you do have any feedback, like, or like experiences in like managing upgrades, like how to make them more simple, again, this is a very good first effort. Or also like what problems like you all have like gone through updates. Like I can think a few myself, like, and they're mostly related to feature gates. But yeah, so like that would be great. In terms of Fabrizio, what you said before, like about what we want to do, like I would say like let's strive to do like the simplest things for users as much as possible. Like, you know, the goal of the project ultimately like is to make cluster lifecycle easy, which is kind of a big challenge anyways. So if maybe like in the short term we could support like, hey, I want to like upgrade the control plane first, like 3 versions ahead. Sure, you could do it like through managed topologies, like we don't block you anymore. But then if I want to like automatically like skip upgrades through worker nodes, like do we require them to go one by one? You know, like things like that. So we'll have to think those edge cases.
Stefan, did you still want to say something?
Yeah, just at this point, short spoiler, I guess. So we're currently thinking about the skew problem a bit and how we can make this better than this today. So there will be probably something coming up, I guess, the next 1 or 2 weeks or something. But we are still thinking through some details, I would say.
Thanks. Cool. I think just bouncing on what Vince said, it would actually be really interesting to hear more from Cluster API users, how they're doing upgrades today, like in production. Like, what are people actually doing? Are you building new clusters? Are you replacing your node pools? Are you upgrading in place? Are you using cluster class? I'd love to hear more, like either here or maybe we can start an issue just to gather some feedback and stories. Mike, go ahead.
I can comment in the issue if you don't want to hear it now, but I can do it. We
Please.
do version upgrades one version at a time. And then when possible, we are not swapping node definitions. We're just upgrading in place. But we do try to, when possible, utilize another tool that we have called K-Shredder. It is in the Adobe GitHub if you wanted to take a look at it. But it kind of helps with some of the draining, with a little bit of business logic around, you know, crash loop backoffs and PDBs that Cluster API can't really handle. But yeah, one version at a time, just for trying to keep up to date on a more regular basis. But we do swap node pools when necessary.
Got it. Thanks for sharing. I think it'd be great to, yeah, get more answers. So if we can start like a discussion or a survey or something, that'd be good. Anyone else want to give some thoughts on the spot or? All right. Cool. Vince, do you want to take sending out some questionnaire form discussion, whatever it is?
Yeah, if somebody wants to collaborate, that would be great. I could prepare like a list of questions and see. I think we could probably do both, like actually like a questionnaire we can send out to the mailing list so people can do it asynchronously and it's more guided. I would think like for folks that are like, you know, that don't use GitHub, maybe that's easier to just like push it out and then also link to the GitHub-ish discussion. And also we can post the results publicly.
Okay. Yeah, I like the idea of people being able to see other people's answer so that, you know, it can also be a sharing thing, knowledge sharing. Stefan?
And a nice thing with GitHub discussions is that we can actually start like sub-discussions based on whatever people answer there, which we can't really have with forums or not that easily.
Okay, let's maybe follow up on the details of the how, but I think just, yeah, let's get some feedback from people. Cool. Anything else on this topic of the cap or LTS or anything? Cool. If you're posting links in the chat, those don't stay, they're ephemeral. So if you want any of the links that are shared to be, discoverable after this meeting ends, please share them in the meeting notes. All right. Mike, you have the next topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. I've been writing up my notes on the managed control plane importing. I know quite a few people ask about that on kind of a regular basis. I got the Kappa stuff together and I'm working on the CapZ ones today, but I'm just not sure what the best way to kind of share these more with the team to allow commenting and feedback. Generally PRs are the way that kind of goes, but I wouldn't know where to PR this to, or if a Google Doc somewhere is better, what people would prefer for this sort of note/document.
I guess what kind of feedback are you looking for? Is this meant to be like a guide at the end, or is this
Yeah,
more
I
just
think a guide is kind of where I'm looking to go, just because I do notice in Slack, at least once a week, if not more often, people are kind of asking, how can I get my EKS or my AKS cluster into cluster API? And so I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to share this somehow. Just, at some point I'd like to share it with the greater community. I just don't know what that would be.
Jack?
Yeah, this certainly reminds me of I think it was earlier this week, a conversation in CapZ about how to better integrate managed Kubernetes docs into the CapZ book. So I think Mike is totally right. There is a lack of like really detailed reference materials for this in CAPI overall. And putting it, I think Cecile made an observation in a Slack thread that putting it into the cluster API book is hard because there's a lot of sort of like there's a lot of this stuff is already sort of covered in the existing materials. And so there's a lot of if then. If you're using managed Kubernetes, consider this, else do it the default way. So integrating all this into the existing cluster API book flow or the Kappa or the CapZ book flow might make the overall documentation just sort of harder to read, especially for a naive viewer. So yeah, really glad you're working on this. It's an unsolved problem, I think.
Stefan?
I think regarding integrating it into a normal book, I think it's the question is what we're aiming for. I mean, if that's like that's a actual guide on how it works, and someone will make sure over time that it keeps on working. That's another level than, oh, here's a blog post about how you can do it and it works as of now. And linking blogs like that in the book shouldn't be an issue at all. You just have to find a nice place. So yeah, I don't know where this will lead. Maybe we're at a point where it would be just good to collect stories from different people, what worked for them, and then we can see where it all leads to. If you implement something in the end, even, I don't know, or have a guide like how this is how you can implement across providers years ahead at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Stefan. I was actually going to say something similar. I think this looks more like a blog post to me, where it's like, try this at your own risk. It worked for me, but it might not work for you. More than like a supported feature of infra providers, right? And in order to make it a supported feature and document it in the book, it would need end-to-end tests to make sure it doesn't regress. It would need commitment from the providers to support it long-term and maintain it, which we don't have right now. This is kind of like a hack, like you figured out how to get it to work, and a lot of people would be interested in using it, but we don't have a guarantee that it will always work, right? So I think there is a lot of appetite and interest in making it a supported feature long-term, but right now, this as is, I think, would be more like, interesting to share, but maybe not to document. That makes sense. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to put up a personal blog post about it. I was just because it's asked so often, I was just trying to figure out a way to say, hey, you can try this approach, just something that's so we can help people more as it goes along. And I did want other people to, hopefully solicit some help in testing this in other environments. So it's not just saying, hey, this works for Adobe and good luck, sort of thing. Someday, as the working group on managed cluster gets, finalized, yeah, it'd be great to have this be more official. But I'm not looking for an official place to put it now. I'm just looking for a place to, it's like more unofficial stuff to help people along as they try to do that stuff. So that's kind of what I was hoping to get.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. I think personal blog post probably was best, in terms of hosting it would probably make sense. And then either linking it in the adoption of clusters like issue, or, if you want it to be more discoverable, more visible, I think I can't speak for Kappa, but in CapZ would definitely be open, I think, to adding a page in the book for, cluster adoption, and then saying something like, this is not currently officially supported. However, here are some, blog posts from users who have found, attempted this. We can find out the wording, but yeah, essentially just saying this isn't a feature, but like, here's an example of someone doing it.
Yeah, that's kind of more what I was thinking. Okay, great, thanks.
Cool. All right. Any other comments or questions on this one? Someone's commenting in the chat that sounds like Mercedes-Benz was planning a larger blog post on this topic as well. So it might be good to, maybe we can add their blog post to the page too. Johannes, go ahead.
Yeah, you said the right words. Yeah, I wanted to, just quickly teaser that we have planned to write this also in like a blog post fashion, so we can align this with your post for Kappa as well. So yeah, that would be a good idea.
Awesome. All right. Let's see. Last topic, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just something that came up at KubeCon a couple of weeks ago, that when we did the talk and asked out of the whole room who's used Kappa, Kappi, sorry. There's only a few hands. The rest of them were completely new to Kappi, and so we generally have to repeat the same things with all of our talks. So then it got me into thinking, and actually, Stefan made a comment after the talk as well about, do we need some standardized presentations, recordings of, say, an introduction to Kappi, and then more widely following some of the stuff from Kubernetes and the contributor experience around, like a new contributor workshop. So really just to get see if people think this is a good idea. I can create a discussion. People can comment on it, but yeah, let me know your thoughts.
I will say the one thing that makes that difficult is things tend to change quickly around here. And every year we've had KubeCon talks of introduction to Kappi, and every year it's very different. Like 2 years ago, cluster class wasn't a thing. Now it is. 3 years ago, KCP wasn't a thing. So if we were to create standard material now, I'm pretty sure it would be outdated by next year. But I don't know if you have any thoughts on, how to mitigate that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, so I guess there is that we would have to keep it updated. So whether we produce it in smaller chunks so that we only had to update a small part of it, or add to it, and it's essentially a playlist that someone could go through in small little parts, so we could build up over time maybe, and just re-record small parts of it. Just seems that there is some desire there for an intro. And definitely there seems to be a lot of interest in how do I contribute. Take me through how I set up. I don't know, Stefan, and Fabrizio did the Let's Talk About. So it's just following on from that, I think, as well. Yeah, it's an ongoing maintenance task. That's a good point, Cecile.
I think at some point we had some stuff in the book for like learning material, right? Is that still there? Is that being, do you know?
Yeah, I think
Am I
it's
making that up?
You can search for videos and then you should find the page. I can never remember. Yeah, that.
Fabrizio.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I'm just a little bit scared about the amount of work in the sense that if I look at the book, it is already complex to maintain this amount of information. I'm not definitely it's not enough given the ask that we have, but working on it is already a job. And we are already at a point where the structure of the book is exploding by the size of the content, and we probably need a better tool just to organize the content. So I also suggest that after the last KubeCon, the material that we are producing is great. If we can find a way to make it more visible or accessible, will be a first step. I'm not sure how we can combine this with the current organization of the book, but those kind of problems are kind of clashing one on the other. But yeah, let's start from first step. Let's make the material available from the KubeCon things more visible. And let's start also pointing users to it, because when I see folks in the chat, in the Slack channel, to point people to the material is when basically we create this wheel of people reading it, people improving it, people fixing it. And then as soon as we can fix up the book in copy, we have to think how to make probably this book extensible. So ideally also provider books can be a session of it. We reduce the cost of maintaining books in every provider, etc., etc. So there is really a room for improvement, but we have to take this one step at a time, because this is not a work that many folks commit to.
Yeah, I think we definitely had a point. I mean, that might be a different format. I don't know if you want to make like short videos or something for part of what Richard was suggesting, but I think regarding written documentation, we definitely hit a limit where the structure is one of our biggest problems. I think we have a lot of information there. A lot of it is even like on multiple pages, but it's just hard if someone was, I don't know, who never saw a book before to actually find information that is in the book somewhere. Yeah, but bandwidth problem to basically rework the book to something which has like a well-defined structure and probably another tool which he generated. I know that Fabrizio did like some experimentation like half a year back or something, but I think we just never got to it to make more progress there.
All right, any other thoughts? Richard, does that help?
It does, yeah. It's all good points. So yeah, really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for bringing this up, and glad to see there was some interest for CAPI at KubeCon. All right, that brings us to the end of the discussion topics. So we just have a few provider updates and feature group updates to go through. So let's get right into it. Matt Boersma, you have the first one with CAPZ.
Hey, thanks, Cecile. Nothing really to add here. Just we had a couple patch releases last week after this meeting, and then today we should be releasing a minor release. So good stuff. That's all.
Good stuff. Thanks. All right. Cap N3 Adil. Sorry, is that how you pronounce
Yes.
your name?
Yes, yes. So we had a minor release last Thursday and also a patch release. So far, everything is working fine. CI is going good. So no surprises yet. So it's going good. Just an update.
Great. We like no surprises release. Awesome. All right. Any other ad hoc provider? Oh, Stefan, go ahead.
Maybe just a general question towards providers. Any kind of updates on adopting the latest cluster API 104 release? Any feedback that, I don't know, we broke things badly? Any upcoming planned releases which are tested against it? I don't know if just spontaneously someone has something. I was away for a few weeks, so I'm not even sure the current status.
Are you asking about 142 that just got released today, or?
No, 1.4.x basically.
Matt, go ahead.
We had a somewhat difficult time releasing 1.4 because we were stuck on that. Well, I'm going to forget the context now. Server-side apply bug that eventually led to 1.4.1. Other than that, it's been relatively painless. And upgrading from 1.4.1 to 1.4.2 was kind of a no-op, so as it should be.
Yeah,
Really?
sorry, just pretty much what Matt said, but also we also took the effort to remove the older API versions because they were deprecated, and that went smoothly for 1.9 release. So yeah, besides the SSA error, which is fixed now, everything was good for us on CapZ.
Joe?
Hey, yeah, like everybody else, we didn't run into any issues, but we did end up going from 1.4.0 to 1.4.1 again without any issue. So good on our end as well.
Great. Adil?
Yeah, for us, it was smooth. When we updated, the fix was already there. So we didn't face these issues. Yep.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, there are two SSA issues, I think. The first one was patching the node status.addresses when there were multiple IP addresses. And the second one was the machine pool patch for annotations wasn't working properly. Fabrizio.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this will help to prevent regression around this, but Killian is working to a dual stack end-to-end test, and maybe this can help in prevent this. So first of all, kudos to Killian for doing this work, and second, maybe this can help also around the specific case.
Yep, I think this will definitely help for the specific case scenario. And then in terms of more general like prevention, we have also an issue to discuss, like maybe integrating continuous testing between some providers and CAPI, and then testing the beta earlier. All right, thanks all for the feedback. Let's see, feature group updates, managed Kubernetes, Jack.
So yeah, I wanted to kind of pose the question about retirement. Do we feel like a feature group that's scoped to a particular proposal is an appropriate thing? And when that proposal emerges, is it an appropriate time to retire that feature group? I do think that just for, you know, resources, we probably can't accommodate feature groups forever. Any thoughts on this? I think lazy consensus would be that I'll plan on retiring this feature. I mean, the problem is that managed Kubernetes as a thing is not going to go away. So it's not like every interesting managed Kubernetes problem has been solved, but.
From the discussions earlier, it sounds like we want to retire this managed Kubernetes API feature group and start an adoption feature group.
So yeah, reach out to me if you want to take over and reuse the existing feature group for me for that. Cool,
Great.
that's it.
Any thoughts or feedback on how, you know, having that feature group helped, since it was the first time we were doing this in CAPI? Do you have any advice for future feature groups, or was this a smooth process overall?
For me, I think, I mean, maybe should I let Fabrizio talk first? You raise your hand, and then I'll happily add some thoughts.
No, I think that is more important to hear your feedback about the process.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was hugely helpful. It produced a proposal, which is the kind of best case scenario. And it was a nice mix of very focused discussion aiding the velocity of that proposal, with sort of like more traditional office hours where folks hopped in and we just had a ad hoc chat. I think, you know, we talked about the intro to cluster APIs thing, and maybe one thing that I would take away from the feature group experience is that for folks who are kind of kicking the tires on something, just having time where maintainers are in a Zoom room and folks can hop on and ask any question, and there's not necessarily a set agenda, that can be helpful. But it obviously it takes a lot of time. So go ahead, Fabrizio.
I comment on two sides of it. So first of all, retirement, I think that it is really up to the team. If they think that they achieved the goal, it's fine to retire it. With regard to the overall experience, I think that it was positive. Let me say, adding a little bit of formality, which is for defining it as a feature group, it increased the visibility and also increased encouraged the team in the feature group to report back to the broader audience. So I think that this is good. The thing is visible to the community, and the people in the team are somehow committed to report back. This makes the work of the feature group not something happening in the dark. And it is, let me say, the main risk when you have a specialized group working on something. And so, in my opinion, it is a good experience. I think that we should keep going. At the end, opening a feature group is writing a statement of what we want to achieve, and is a good practice for every working group. So
yeah, cool. I'll say one more thing that I didn't include in my assessment. One thing that it definitely, I think, achieved is getting a lot of those conversations out of this meeting, which I think helps this meeting. And that was one of the original motivations for me, is to not have to take up 10 minutes week after week after week in the general meeting with these very detailed topics.
Great. All right. That brings us to the end of the agenda. Thanks all for coming, and see you all in Slack and online. Have a good Wednesday. Bye.